friends. It's Carly, and welcome to a very special episode of the I Learned podcast. Here a while back, not too long ago, I learned that I am a Life Path 6. And as at the time, I didn't really spark on that and need to get into it. And yesterday, through a long series of events, uh, I was just couldn't not look into it anymore. It just was overwhelming how much I needed to look into this Life Path 6 thing that was, coming up for me now. And so yesterday I just dove headfirst into what are life numbers, and to pull a life number, you only need the month, the day, and the year of the person's birth. So because of my work in natal charts, I have all kinds of birthdays. So I pulled 30 people's life path numbers and made a list and organized the people by their life path numbers so I could look for patterns. You know how I do. That's just, isn't that normal? Aren't we all doing these things? So I did all of that yesterday, and in that pursuit of making the list of here I feel like the 30 people that I pulled, those are the people kind of closest up to me in my life and who I have spent some time trying to understand already through the other tools for self-awareness that I have access to, like natal charts or Myers-Briggs or whatever. And so putting the life path numbers on all of these people, patterns emerged with I talked on the intro episode, the last episode, just kind of a broader overview about life path numbers and how when I made that list, a pattern emerged with life path 3. I had these independent relationships that, I mean, two of them I had actually labeled, these are karmic relationships, that these people are here to provoke healing in me. The relationships served a healing purpose by aggravating my demons. And those two people are both life path 3s. And I was like, whoa, okay, so there's definitely something to this. I've really, really enjoyed getting into it and learning about the core, the relationship for me with life path 3s. That was really, really big. And just learning about life path 6 in particular was really powerful in terms of framing the overall themes that I've had throughout my life. And I'm going to talk about those in detail in this very special episode that I am basically coming to as this is a love letter to all the life path 6s in the universe. And that is my tone. That is what I want to convey. Everything that I learned yesterday has helped me to love myself just a little bit more and to understand my path just a little bit more, and to be able to reach for my purpose just a little bit more clearly. So all of those things felt so amazing. So this is like a gift to all of my life path 6 friends. Seeing that list was so powerful. Like out of all the 30, people that thereabouts that I pulled their life path numbers, to see the people who landed on the life path 6 line with me was fascinating, like mind-blowingly fascinating for a couple of different reasons. So yes, I want to use this space to send love to all the life path 6s. And if you are clicking into this episode or you're listening to this episode because you know a life path 6 or you love a life path 6 or you're married to a life path 6, I love you for being here as well and trying to understand more clearly this life path 6 energy and mindset, because they're just, with all the life paths, there's gifts and talents that we inherently have, and then there are challenges and opportunities for growth that are inherent in this path. And that is the same for all the life paths. It's just a matter of specifically what are we here to learn? What did we choose to come forward to learn? And this is, one more place where I feel it feels yummy to stick in that I do believe that we chose our starting point. I was born June 19th, 1988, and that makes me a life path 6. And I believe that I chose to come forward on June 19th, 1988. I was born at 2:47 a.m. and again believe that I chose to like wait until nope, I need it to be June 19th, 1988 because that is the energy that I want my life marked with. That life path 6 energy. I want that on my life. I want to have those skills and I want to learn those lessons. And I was born as the oldest in my family. I have 3 younger brothers, and as I look at the life path sixes on the list with me, there are a lot of oldest siblings. And if they're not the oldest, they had a life experience. Like one of my friends that's on here is the youngest out of a bunch of kids, but she was also younger by several years. And that her older siblings were having kids when she was like 7 or 8 years old, and she got stuck kind of raising one of them and taking care of it every day. And like she's 8. And so, I mean, like that's kind of the energy of that life path 6 is responsibility is one of the key themes, and service is the other key theme. So that's really what we're going to talk about in this extended look at what does it mean to have that life path 6 or that 6 energy kind of wrapped around your life. Because obviously there are only, 9, maybe a few more life path numbers if you subscribe to like master numbers like 11 and 22, stuff like that. But for the most part, we're talking like only couple handfuls of numbers, and you're dividing the entire planet into those few categories. So even within life path 6, there's depth and there's ways that, like, for example, there's ways for life path 6s to differentiate between us. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time there, but what I'm talking about is like if you do your addition of your birth date to get your life path number, either there's 3 ways you can get there. Like my cousin Chad, who's a life path 6, which just blew my freaking mind because I very much have a karmic relationship with him. And he's my business partner at this point. So his is like literally a 1, a 2, and a 3 added together, and that makes 6. And so mine, though, is bigger numbers that add together to make 15. And you add the 1 and the 5 together, and that makes 6. And then there are others whose bigger numbers add up to 24, and 24 reduces by adding 2 and 4 down into 6. So there's lots of different ways that you can get to a life path 6. And so, for example, the energy of a 15 that comes into like reduces to a 6, or the energy of a 24 that reduces to a 6, they're 2 different things. So as I talk about life path 6, all of this should be kind of taken as that overarching energy that's like a film over your entire experience. It just kind of colors the entire experience, and how we each come to express this out into the world is going to look a little bit different based on some other factors. Like this is not a super specific individualized practice. If we wanted something like that, there's natal charts, there's human design, there's I Ching, there's all kinds of things that we could look at to get more specific on individuals. But this is such a helpful foundation for making peace with the key themes, the lessons, the gifts, owning the gifts and using those gifts to get you through your lessons, like putting all those pieces together. It feels really, really, really good. Yesterday felt amazing to soak all of this up for myself. And I am so excited to share it with you, whether you are a life path 6 or you love a life path 6. Just know that I think there's going to be even more love by the time we soak all of this up. So it was very interesting because, when I learn something new, when I try to take in a new concept, I always start with mine. So I always like mine's a life path 6. So that's the first life path information that I'm reading. I'm trying to resonate with it personally. And as I was reading it, I'm still just kind of trying to take it in for myself. But as I'm reading it, I come to this paragraph that said something like you'll take undue responsibility for others, even if they don't need you to, even if they don't ask you to. You just can't help yourself. You take responsibility for other people. And then you usually wind up resenting that you're so responsible and they need you so much. You resent them for it, even though you set yourself up into that position. And no offense, but that reminded me of one of my clients. It reminded me of me too, for sure. But it also reminded me of a conversation that I had with one of my clients in a session where she's describing that this is what she does. And I'm sitting there thinking like, wow, I do that too. I practice this same thing. So this is cool that we can talk about this. And so when I'm reading the article yesterday, that reminded me of that conversation. I was like, I wonder what her life path number is. And so I go look it up. It's a 6. And then that really got me curious. So I looked up my other client's life path number, and she is also a 6. So I talked in the intro yesterday about how I used to do individual readings where you could just come and get one-off reading. And that just doesn't really do it for me. So I've switched to doing packages. So you have to commit to at least 4 sessions because we're going to go deeper into putting all of these pieces together and seeing if we can get something to come out of it. And that's just, that's my jam. And so I've had 2 clients so far sign up for these extended engagements to do sessions with me. And I learned yesterday that we are all 3 life path 6s. So I was like, what are the freaking chances? And then later I figure out that my cousin Chad, my business partner, that, I've talked about so much shadow work that I've done because of him, because of his influence in my life, because of, just growing up, and he's my role model and everything. It makes so much more sense to me now why he was always my role model, because he's a life path 6 years ahead of me, living this path that we both are on. It makes so much more sense now to understand why I looked up to him so powerfully and why I resonated with him so powerfully. It just kind of softened everything on that level with him. The other fun one that I think is really interesting is I had one of those one-off sessions with this chick. Her name was Natalie, which is just such a cool name. I've never heard that name otherwise. And she was such a cool individual, and she really resonated with the session that she got from me. She got the 1 session. And then the next month I ran a special deal on my prices, and she bought a session for her best friend. And right after that, her best friend, I think was switching jobs and moved maybe to a different state. Anyways, so that session got booked for April, and through a few reschedulings, it's now scheduled for this upcoming Sunday, September 5th. And so it's very fascinating to me that all of these reschedulings happen to push the session further and further and further. And I found out yesterday that she is also a life path 6. So I'm, not that I wasn't already looking forward to that session, but it just seems even more serendipitous now that I would know it going in that we are both of this life path 6 energy, and be able to speak to her even more clearly from that common ground of understanding. So all of that coming together yesterday was so powerful. And again, I'm so glad you're here for me to share this with you. In the description, I've linked a few articles. You can Google Life Path 6, and there's, 8.7 million results in 5 seconds, 1.2 seconds. All kinds of things about Life Path 6 and Life Path 6 compatibility. So those are the 4 articles that I've linked in the description as a starting point. But obviously, 1, keep your BS meter on and only soak up the parts that resonate with you. And 2, read more if you want, or if it's, the one article's not doing it for you, then switch to a different one, and maybe the way they write will explain it more clearly. So definitely feel free to check out those. The compatibility one, I really, I thought that was interesting just because I wanted to see, what are the life path numbers that get along more easily with a 6 energy and that have a harder time. They're just wired differently. They go into all of that. So that's very interesting. When you read the life path compatibility between 2 6s, a couple of quotes stood out to me. One is that 2 6s are lucky to find each other. And I thought that was beautiful, like literally beautiful. I had to like sit back and just like really take a minute because I've spent so much time being grateful for Denitria, my first extended engagement client. We've been working together for a few months now, and then Patty came along, and I've spent so much time being grateful for her. And now, here are other ones that I recognize in my world as this same energy, and I've spent so much time being grateful for them. And it's like, it's so crazy how, you know, other than Chad, none of these Life Path 6 people were in my life a year ago. They all came to me very, very, very recently. It's almost like there's an awakening that's happening. I've been feeling it inside myself and seeing that even just in these last like 4 months, like 3 or 4 new Life Path 6s have popped up into my world. So all of this is so freaking cool that I'm connecting with these kindred spirits. It feels so good. So yes, 2 6s are lucky to find each other because, as we're going to get into it, I mean, there's just so much harmony between 2 6s. But at the same time, because like one of the main themes of a Life Path 6 is unconditional love and demonstrating unconditional love. And because of that, you can actually kind of, in a relationship between 2 6s, you can kind of trap each other in your weaknesses because you're like nurturing each other's weaknesses and compensating for each other's weaknesses. So it basically said like 2 6s risk falling into a codependent relationship because they're just so wired for nurturing that they just each lose themselves into the other person. So yeah, that doesn't sound great per se. But I definitely resonated with what it was saying about the harmony between 2 6s. So without further ado, I have some notes prepared on and this is just from like reading those few articles that I linked in the description and kind of putting them all together. So my sources for this information are all 3 of those articles in bits and pieces, and organized them into the key theme of service and support, the key theme of responsibility, the true essence of our Life Path 6 energy, and I wrote this little thing that just came out called The Art of Life Path 6, the artfulness of Life Path 6. And then I also pulled some tarot cards where in the Light Seers Tarot, which is the deck that I'm using, there's a spread in the front of the book called Soul Joy Spread. And I've pulled this spread for myself once, and it was very, very beautiful. And as I was prepping for this episode and thinking and feeling in that space of this is a love letter to my fellow Life Path 6s, and I was just like like literally so giddy to bring you this loving energy and just to like pour out my heart to say like I see you and I love you, and oh my goodness, like I respect the journey that you are on because I'm on it also. And so as I'm shuffling my cards, I'm going to pull some cards just to help convey this energy more clearly. And it popped into my mind to like, I want to see the soul joy spread for a Life Path 6. Like, give me a reading that can kind of be in this overarching energy of this Life Path 6 space. So I have those to share at the end as well. So many gifts of love and understanding and knowledge and awareness and hopefully foundationally supportive energy for you to be even more in love with who you are. That is I'm talking to the Life Path 6s, obviously, but like, or if you're married to a Life Path 6, I hope by the end of this, you're even more in love with who they are, accepting of them for who they are and how they're wired, how all of us Life Path 6ers are wired. So we're going to start with what I think is the most important piece of Life Path 6, and that is the key theme of service and support. This is like the life force of Life Path 6 is to be of service. Because of this, because the key drive is to be of service, Life Path 6 is one of, if not the most harmonious of all the Life Path numbers. It is of the same frequency as Mother Gaia, so planet Earth, the mother planet that supports us. it's a gifter of unconditional love. And you think about it, like unconditional love, it lets go of so many things, of conditions. Obviously we're in unconditional space, so it doesn't matter how the person is, doesn't matter what's in their past, doesn't matter what choices they've made, doesn't matter where they're headed in the future. They are, and therefore they are worthy of love. And that is the ultimate outlook for a life path 6, is that everything deserves love and I will bring it. And so it's a very loving energy. Like you think about mothering energy, it's the very essence of motherly care. It's the combination of higher divine, that unconditional loving energy of seeing the interconnectedness and the worthiness of every single being, and hard work on earth. Like you think about a mom, she's one of the hardest working characters there are. I don't have children, I have 4 pets, and I still feel, like I really have to spend a lot of energy nurturing. I can't even imagine if I had 4 kids like what my mom had. Like that would just be a lot. But it's that combination of like, I love you so much, I'm willing to work my ass off to do whatever it takes to help you accomplish your task. I'll give you everything. And we're going to get in later where that's actually part of the shadow element, is that we are so willing to give everything, and that can be a downfall. But we're going to get into that just a little bit later. Because of this Mother Gaia, unconditional love, combination of higher divine and hard work on earth, because of all of that, life path 6 are the ultimate protectors, healers, and humanitarians, putting others' needs ahead of their own. And again, this is like saintly energy. Like I'm not calling us saints because of all of the things we're going to get into as we continue to dive into this. I'm starting with this piece that I think we can all deeply connect to, that like everything we do is to be of service. Everything we do, we ask ourselves, how is this serving other people? How is this making other people happy? How is this helping others? Like, how am I making a positive impact in this world? How am I leaving it a better, more secure, more loved place than it was before my life came through? Confucius was quoted in one of the articles as adding, the superior person takes from where there is too much and augments what is too little. That way all things are apportioned correctly. And that's kind of going back to that life path 6 of service. Because we want to be of service, we're often drawn to people who need serviced. Like we're problem solvers, we're helpers. So we attract people who need help. And we give and we give and we give and we give and we give. And that is the challenge of a life path 6. Every single life path has gifts and challenges. And this saintly energy feels so good to flow that we get addicted. These are my words. I didn't read this in one of the articles. I don't want to, just in case I'm misinterpreting this, but this is how I understand it. We get so addicted to being in that divine mother energy, being the helper, being the one who helps somebody else feel better or accomplish something that's important to them or whatever it is, that we don't give to ourselves. We're so consumed with caring for others that we do not care for ourselves. And then eventually that catches up with us. And there's a burnout, there's a crash, there's a health issue of some sort, there's throwing your back out, so you have to stop. So you have to stop and give yourself some care. I mean, how many times have I been like, my neck is stuck, or like my back hurts, or like there's a pinch in my shoulder so I can't raise my arm. And now like all I do is like sit here and figure out how can I feel better, you know? And I recognize those moments of physical pain where it's manifesting as a problem in my body, or I manifest the flu or whatever. Like that is a slowdown. That's saying like you're out of balance. You're caring for everybody else and you're not taking good enough care of yourself. And, you know, the universe doesn't mean to be judgmental, but that's the results speak for themselves. You know, when we manifest pain and hurt, we aren't taking good enough care of ourselves. We're focused too much on the other people. And so the shadow of this, because we manifest illness and slowdowns, we can have a tendency in shadow when we're in that weaker energy state to blame that on other people. That like I had to show up. There was nobody else. Like I had to be there. I had to take care of this person. If I didn't do it, nobody else would. And that's why I'm sick. That's why I have no energy. That's why I'm crashed out right now, because nobody else was going to do it, so I had to. And that's a natural perspective for Life Path 6, and I've absolutely been there. But it is a flawed premise. It is a very flawed premise. And we are going to talk more about that as we get into the key theme of responsibility. And so the shadow is that we manifest these feelings of resentment towards the people that we care most about. We gave them all our energy and all of our love, and we invested it into them. And now we resent them because they didn't give it back to us enough. And we didn't keep any for ourselves because we're waiting on them to give it to us. And now we don't have any energy. We're not full of love anymore because we gave it all away. And now we're crashing and we're resentful. And I don't know about you, but I've been through that loop, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 times in my life of like crashing out because I prioritized external factors that were outside of myself instead of myself. And the basis of this, as I understand it, and this is where the flawed premise kind of comes from, is this need to feel like I'm bringing value to others. And that is kind of part of that film of this Life Path 6 energy. Is Life Path 6 nurtures others. Life Path 6 brings value to others, period. Can't help it. You can't help yourself. Your life path is going to lead to you bringing value to other people. And we know that and we feel it, and it's a motivating factor, and it gets us out of bed in the morning, and it drives us all day long, and we dream about it, and it's just part of who we are. We need to feel like we're bringing value to others. But the balance of this, like how do you bring this shadow perspective, this flawed premise, how do we pivot, how do we bring all of this energy back into balance, is to evolve beyond blaming my passiveness on others. Like there's so much, and I'm going to speak from first person here because again, I don't want to put anything on anybody that's not theirs. But for me, so much of my identity was wrapped up in who I was nurturing. So like, I'm not me, I'm Ross's older sister. You know, that's the role I'm playing, is I'm Ross's older sister and I'm nurturing my little brother. And I'm this guy's girlfriend, and I'm, you know, this is how I viewed myself. And it was very much, I am part of what I am supporting. I am, like, to understand myself, I have to look at the value that I've created in the world for other people. And that means like judging my worth based on how happy this other person is, was basically how I was looking at it. And that's where we get out of balance. So evolving beyond defining ourselves in terms of who we're nurturing, you know, like define ourselves as a nurturer, that's fine. But that's a big difference between I am a nurturer and I am the nurturer of my little brother Ross. I'm Ross's nurturer, you know, like being that closed in and defined with our identity is a recipe for heartache and imbalance. That is what I've learned. So the balancing factor, again, comes back to learning how to love ourselves. There's so much balance in bringing that focus back onto ourselves, broadening our identity and identifying as a nurturer of mass consciousness, a nurturer of all who are, a nurturer of all beings. And this is where I float. And then I love myself for offering this nurturing, loving energy into this world. I think it's a beautiful thing what we Life Path Sixes do. The amount of love that we just send out and send out and send out and send out. One of my friends who's on this list, she had some health issues where she was pretty much immobile, not a whole lot of physical energy. So she felt like, she still felt this need to add value to others and to, send love out into the world, but she has no energy to really go or interact with people or, move around at all. And so she set the alarm on her phone for the top of every hour, and she would spend a minute sending out loving energy to, kind of like a loving kindness meditation where she would send it to, her city and her state and her family and her country and this world and, all of her friends from this place and everyone she's ever met in a past life. And like, she would just like whatever random group she could think of to send out this radically loving energy, just generate it and send it out to anybody who can receive it. And she basically freed herself from who she's nurturing, and she flipped into a place of just nurturing. So it's like that. It's like detach from who it is that's receiving it. And I can tell you this is hard. It's so hard. It's so deliciously satisfying to nurture and witness an improvement in someone's energy that it is extremely challenging to detach because we're so enticed and enjoying witnessing the satisfaction on the other person. But as we love ourselves more, as we point our focus back inward, we're able to more identify as the nurturer and recognize how good it feels to flow that love through our vessel and to attach to that. Not to the other person, not to who's receiving it, but to our inner experience of being the nurturer. It is so freaking satisfying to get to live in this harmonious place where I'm here to practice unconditional love. I'm here to, I practice that by unconditionally loving myself as much as I can and bringing that energy to everyone else. As much as I can and demonstrating what that looks like when you unconditionally love something, and detaching from anyone who might be benefited by my doing this. And this idea of practicing non-attachment, it is coming up again and again and again these last couple weeks for me. And so I don't think it's an accident that yesterday I learned about Life Path 6, and that seems to be the answer for balance and getting harmony in your energy is detaching from the identity of who you're nurturing and identify more as the nurturer yourself. And another balancing factor, and this is something that I know I've definitely learned over my lifetime, is discernment, meaning learn who to love and who to invest our energy in and take some responsibility for our own satisfaction. And, this is where I've found it really helpful rather than trying to figure out like who's worthy of me nurturing them and who's not worthy. Like everybody's worthy. It's not a matter of worthiness. It's a matter of readiness. Who's ready? Who's ready to hear me right now? Who's ready to be nurtured? Like most grown folks don't want to be nurtured, period. And if they do, they're going to find their way to that moment in a very special energy. So us as nurturers trying to use our eyeballs and like pick out like who's a good candidate for me to put my nurturing energy on, that's exhausting. And so as I turn my focus inward, back on myself, loving myself, existing in the satisfaction and joy of getting to be the one who loves, and inviting literally every being on the planet, not just humans, every being on the planet is welcome to cross my path in a moment where they are ready to be nurtured, where they are ready to be loved, and I will love them. That is how my energy operates. That's how I try to operate anyway, is let them come to me, let them reveal themselves, let them reveal their own readiness. And since I've transitioned into this space of going inward and being the love and letting whoever, whatever in the universe that's ready to receive love, they can come to me because I'm sending it out like a lot of the time. Granted, that's taken some practice, right? Like I had some really harsh feelings about not being loved as much as I was loving other people. That was an imbalance that I carried for quite a while. And I did have to work to heal that. And again, the answer comes back to self-love, realizing that it's really not somebody else's job to love me. It's my job to love me. It's really everybody's job to love themselves. The love that we give to each other is really just a bonus. And so as nurturers, we as life path sixers, we as the gifters of unconditional love, it's really important to remember that like we are not indispensable. We are a bonus. We are not needed. We are loved and adored for what we bring, but we're not needed, right? Like this is part of the balance of what we're going to talk about as we move into the key theme of responsibility. Another shadow element of being out of balance with this key theme of service is passiveness or passive aggressiveness. Because we are so intent on harmony and love, we can minimize conflict. We can, brush stuff under the rug. We can bottle up hurt feelings. And eventually that grows into resentment. And again, really the people that we prioritize love and harmony the most are our closest loved ones. And if anything, that is where learning the value of productive conflict or, speaking your truth, eye-to-eye truth telling, is a skill that it is in the greater good of the harmony of the relationship to do those things. While they may be uncomfortable in the short term, the long-term relationship is more harmonious as a result, because as we harbor hurt feelings and we don't let them come out because we're prioritizing harmony in the moment, that's such a short-term view and it breeds resentment. And I feel like I know that because again, I've been through that cycle so many times. And so again, the answer comes back to loving yourself, because the more we love ourselves, the more validated we'll feel in speaking our truth, just because it's our truth. We may realize that this is going to be hard for the other person to hear, but we're going to wrap it in as much love for them as we possibly can. And we're going to be thoughtful about it because we want to respect their feelings and the harmony of that moment. But this needs to be said. In the greater good of our connection, this needs to be said. And there's a confidence that comes in your truth when you love yourself. And so again, kind of the balancing factor in this support of others, in this service of others, the balance of how to be really good at that is to love yourself a lot. So it seems counterintuitive, but really when you unpack it and you open it up, it makes so much sense that the more you fill your own cup, the more the cup is full, the more the cup is overflowing. And really that's the best strategy, is to constantly be filling your cup, taking such good care of yourself, servicing yourself, nurturing yourself, being attentive to your own needs and taking care of them as quickly as possible, just like you would do for somebody else. We're so quick to meet other people's needs. And then I know for me, it would be like, oh, I need that. Okay, yeah, you can wait. Just give me a minute. I'm still doing this for this other person. So you need to wait. And just like that constant deprioritization of ourselves, like it does nothing for us, but put ourselves in this inferior state where we're more likely to give everything to somebody else. And when we're left with nothing, our physical body will crash, period. So again, the balancing factor always comes back to this practice of self-love. So like, how does the Life Path 6 be of even greater service to the collective? They love themselves a little bit more. That's my main takeaway on that first key theme.